Is Amazon a good place to buy a musical instrument? It's a really good question, and I would have to say the answer is both yes and no. Yes, because you are going to be able to find a lot of good quality brands on Amazon. But it's also not a good place at the same time because intermixed with those quality instruments are going to be a lot of subpar instruments and brands. And what makes this question even more enticing is the fact that a lot of those lower quality instruments are actually really cheap. We're talking about being able to purchase a musical instrument for around $50 to $200. That's hundreds of dollars less expensive than the major brands. So how is that possible? What makes these lower quality instruments so much cheaper than the higher quality instruments? And what determines whether or not an instrument is good and high quality versus one that is bad and low quality? Well, I believe there are at least 3 different factors that can help determine this. The first factor is the types of materials that were used to make the instrument. For example, using low quality metals to build a trumpet or really any brass instrument will make it easier for that instrument to dent, bend, and ultimately break. Same can be true of woodwind instruments and all of the metal mechanisms that are included on those instruments. So yes, the overall instrument is cheaper, but there were shortcuts taken to get there. The second factor honestly could be the most important factor, and that's replacement parts. No matter the brand, all instruments are susceptible to wear and tear, and will occasionally need to be maintained for the long-term health of the instrument. Just like you or me need to go to the doctor every so often for our long-term health. The unfortunate thing for these low-quality instruments, though, is that they do not have replacement parts available. Meaning that if something breaks, you won't be able to get it repaired, because parts for it plainly do not exist. Lastly, the third factor is the difference in the quality of sound an instrument can produce. And this can simply be determined based on how well the instrument was made, which in a way is kind of an offshoot of our first factor, because trumpets that are made with a high quality metal will sound incredibly and noticeably different from those of which were made with a low quality metal. The quality of sound on an instrument from one of the reputable brands will be more resonant and full, and ultimately will be able to keep a stable pitch and play in tune more consistently. The reason all of these factors are so important is because when we're talking about a student who is just beginning on their instrument and musical journey, we want there to be as few roadblocks as possible. And the instrument itself should not be one of those roadblocks getting in the way of a student's musical success. Hence why it would be a good idea to make the investment and purchase an instrument from a reputable brand, because so long as it's taken care of, it will last you a long time. This does bring us back to the original question though. Is Amazon a good place to purchase a musical instrument? And ultimately, I would have to say yes, with the caveat that you're being cautious of the brands you're looking at. Because even with everything we just talked about regarding high versus low quality instruments, I do feel that Amazon gets a bad rap sometimes because people will just label any low quality instrument that they find on Amazon as being a quote unquote Amazon instrument. When in reality, just because you found it on Amazon does not necessarily mean that Amazon made it, as there are several high quality brands that sell their products on Amazon. How is that the case? Well, when you really simplify it, Amazon is ultimately a distributor. Now, they aren't technically classified as a distributor because Amazon has a unique marketplace business model, and they have actually been fighting that label of being a distributor for a long time. But for the sake of this discussion, all of the products that we're talking about, that being musical instruments, all come from third-party sellers. Meaning, the brands that put their instruments up for sale on Amazon use it as a platform to sell their product. Just like how you would go to the grocery store to buy a name brand product, let's say Totino's Pizza Rolls. The grocery store doesn't actually make the pizza rolls, that is Totino's who made the product and is using the grocery store as a platform/distributor to make those sales happen. The same is true of finding instruments on Amazon. Amazon is not the one who's actually building any instruments. They are merely allowing third-party sellers or brands to use their website as a platform for people to buy their product. To be frank though, even though I believe Amazon is an okay place to buy an instrument, I do not believe they do a very good job of filtering out the good quality instruments from the low quality ones. For example, I typed trumpet in the search bar on Amazon, and I actually had to scroll quite a ways before I found the first quality instrument in the search results. So if I'm attempting to find an instrument for a beginning student, what do I do with all of this information? And how do I determine which instruments are low quality versus the ones that are high quality? Well, right off the bat, I would say a good rule of thumb is that if you see a brand new instrument being sold on Amazon, it should be a red flag if it costs less than $250. That is going to be a fairly good indicator of whether or not that instrument is from one of the reputable brands. And this is why it's really important to know which brands consistently deliver high quality instruments versus the ones that consistently deliver low quality instruments. Which for a student who is just beginning, some of those good, reputable brands would be Yamaha, Jupiter, Eastman, and Trevor James, as well as any of the Conn-Selmer brands, which include Bach, Selmer, Prelude, and Vito. There are other brands, especially when you get into the intermediate and advanced level instruments, but I would say this is a pretty good list to get started. However, when buying a new instrument online or in store, I would recommend consulting with your band or orchestra director, private instructor, or even a representative from a school music dealer. Because everyone has their own opinions about which brands might be better than others. Just like everyone can debate whether or not Chevrolet is better than Toyota, or Ford, or Tesla, etc. But what I think everyone would agree on is that if you need a vehicle that will last you a long time and get you from point A to point B, you purchase one of those name brand vehicles and not a battery operated car that's made for kids, even though it is thousands of dollars less expensive. The same is true of purchasing musical instruments. Because when you buy an instrument from a reputable name brand company, that instrument will last you a long time, so long as it's taken care of and treated with respect. However, if you decide to buy an instrument from a less reputable brand, to me that's the same thing as buying a car made for kids that's battery operated, when in reality, what you need is a car that can drive on the highway. And we all know one of those kids' cars is not going to make it past the driveway with an adult in the front seat. That lower quality instrument might be significantly cheaper. Yes, that of which is true, but it will not allow a beginning student to progress as well as they should because of all of the factors causing it to be a poor instrument. So overall, would I recommend purchasing a musical instrument on Amazon? Yes, so long as you are being observant and aware of the brands that you are looking at. The same awareness that you should have looking at instruments on any other website. No matter if it's Sweetwater, Guitar Center, Music and Arts, Musician's Friend, Steve Weiss, etc. The point though is that you are attempting to find the best instrument possible for a student who wants to progress and be successful on their musical journey. But hey, if you're watching this video and are saying to yourself, I really want to improve at my instrument and become a better musician, then click or tap the screen to watch some of the other content I have here on the channel. And I will see you in the next video.